Good morning, everyone. This is Michael O'Malley here. We are doing a severe weather briefing for the potential for severe weather on this upcoming Wednesday into Thursday. This is the Day 5 outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. Merry Christmas to everybody. Hope everyone is having a fantastic day so far. Hope everyone's family is doing well. We have the potential for some severe weather upcoming over the next several days. This is a Day 5 categorical outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, a 15% region, one of the two risk categories possible on these extended long-range outlooks. Again, there is the risk for some severe weather all the way from portions of far eastern Louisiana, extreme southeastern Arkansas, most of Mississippi, and central Alabama included in this risk area. And we're going to discuss why there is that potential for some severe weather, but also the potential that we may even have some failure modes. And of course, this is still about 5 days out on the models. So a lot of the models still are very flip-floppy between what's going on out here and what these respective models think will occur. So let's take a look here at the GFS forecast. This is the 12Z run here, valid today at 2 p.m. First of all, we notice that we have a big ridge of high pressure in the low levels that is positioned just to the east of Florida right now. And this ridge of high pressure is not really allowing for much moisture return across the Gulf of Mexico and across most of the Gulf Coast states. And in fact, if we take a look here at the dew points out of this hour, moisture return isn't very strong. There's 60 dew points that make its way into central Arkansas and then pretty much just fall off here. And this is because, again, this big ridge of high pressure only allowing for some slight moisture return. There's nothing really out here to really begin to scoot across and really pick up this moisture and surge it northward. So moisture return right now is fairly limited. If we move, though, in through the day tomorrow, in through Monday, we can actually see that we actually get some moisture surge that starts taking place down here. And this is a response because we have a system developing, according to the GFS right now, that is over the Illinois area and moving off towards the west, or I'm sorry, off to the east like that. And what this is going to do is allow that moisture surge to begin surging northward and further northward in towards the Ohio Valley region. And again, our risk area is still on Wednesday, mainly across this area right here. So the moisture surge is already looking pretty good. And that moisture surge continues in through the day Tuesday. We finally get our system here on Wednesday. This is Wednesday, valid at 7 a.m., 12Z. We notice that we have now a lot more 70 dew points out here in the Gulf of Mexico. This big ridge of high pressure out here has retrograded a little bit. And this is allowing that moisture surge to take place a bit more. We're getting a low-level response here from mid-level energy that is building up there. And what this is now beginning to lead to is moisture on the increase across the Gulf Coast states here. Now, as anticipated, again, moisture is not really so much of a problem for the Gulf Coast states this time of the year, but we can see that there will be plenty of moisture even in through the day on Thursday before the front begins to come down here. You can kind of see where the delineation of that front is somewhere right around here. And this is going to begin to start pushing all that moisture southward before yet another response here starts to take place on Saturday. We start to get that flow increasing again across portions of Texas and Louisiana once again. So what could be happening over the next several days? Well, we take a look here at the Gfs Simulated Precip. Again, we'll move this out here to Tuesday into Wednesday. So we can see here, this is Tuesday night. This is 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. Tuesday night, 0Z. And we notice that we have kind of a clipper system that is digging in across here. We also have some snow going on across some of the northern parts of the country and just plain rain across most of the southern regions here. And what this is going to lead to, again, we may have that rain contaminated in the warm sector down here. We can see that there might be the potential for some warm sector contamination, and this is going to play a major role in the severe weather threat for Wednesday into Thursday morning. Because again, if there's a lot of rain down here in this warm sector, we notice that temperatures will struggle. And if we take a representative sounding down here, instability is going to be relatively limited. We notice that we don't really have a lot of cape. In the surface, the most unstable cape is really only just about 600, 700 cape. And account for mixing, we only have just about 500 cape. And that's not going to cut it for any sort of significant severe weather at all. Relatively moist column aloft here, and this is a big problem if you're looking for these bigger time severe weather events. A relatively moist column, and that's to be expected for kind of a Dixie Alley sounding. But again, this is kind of one of those things where we have a very saturated moist column aloft. Not a lot of response here to drying, and this is already, this is looking at 18Z. We fast forward to 21Z, and this is mainly across the warm sector here, and you just notice that there's not really a lot going on across this warm sector. Instability values are relatively limited. We've even got a shallow capping inversion here just above the surface, so the GFS is certainly a little bit less interested in the severe weather threat. But the dynamics here, if we look here at the GFS 850 millibar wind, this is the wind at about 5,000 feet off the ground. And we'll move out here to Wednesday, and we could see here, this is 12Z on Wednesday. So this is a very early morning. We notice that there's not really much of a low-level jet across our risk area. There is some residual low-level shear down here from this jet. Roughly about 40 knots or so over eastern eastern Alabama during this time. This begins to fade off though, but look how it starts to become more of a response, but this is a very delayed response here on the GFS. We notice even at 3Z, you only have roughly about 27 knots here. There's not really a lot of shear on the forecast here from the GFS. And I think a large part of that is, again, we just don't really have the dynamic support in play here. And this low-level jet doesn't really get going until right about 6 to 9Z and forward into the 12Z hour. And that's mainly over portions of Alabama and especially into parts of Georgia as well. But again, that's not where the severe weather risk is. We notice that the severe weather risk here, the 15 area, ends across eastern Alabama during this time, and it's highlighted across here. So that's not going to cut it. Now we jump up to the 500 millibar winds. This is roughly at about 18,400 feet in the atmosphere. And again, we notice that we do have a trough ejection that is coming down here. And by 18Z here on Wednesday, we have just about 50 knots of shear at about 18,000 feet. In the upper levels, so that is going to create a little bit of speed shear aloft. And then we jump up to the 200 millibar layer. We have a little bit more shear up at about 200 millibars. We'll jump out here. It's about 18Z. We have just about 90 knots of flow here, and that increases to over 100 knots across portions of northern Mississippi. So there will be that that upper level response. But the low-level response is going to be delayed. And again, we can look here at what the lapse rates will be like. And this is important because, again, we could be dealing with a low cape, high shear environment during this time. Again, this is 18 going into 21Z. And most of the lapse rates, only at about 5.5 centimeters. Not really a lot here, or I'm sorry, not centimeters, Celsius. So not really a significant lapse rate response, but some over portions of southern Mississippi, though. Now, we switch to the European forecast here. This is the 0Z European forecast, and this offers a vastly different scenario. So we'll kind of go ahead and move the forecast out in time here. And what you'll start to notice here is that, again, we have this low-level response kind of taking place here. And this is by Wednesday at 18Z here. We notice by Wednesday at 18Z, we do have a warm sector that is beginning to pop with thunderstorms. And unfortunately, we can't really get a sounding here. Well, we can try to take a look at some of the other parameters. So we'll take a look here at the dew point. Again, this is 18Z. Dew points are already a lot higher than on the GFS. We're looking at dew points overspreading the region in the upper 60s. This is going to be more than sufficient to squeeze out thunderstorms for sure in that type of environment. Now, we'll look here at the 850 wind real quickly, and we'll look at what this low-level jet could look like here. So at 18Z across central Mississippi, we have a 35 to 40 knot low-level jet, and this begins to rapidly increase. We go to 0Z, and that low-level jet strengthens, again, modestly, but 30 knots or better of low-level flow here out of the west-southwest direction here, and this is roughly or really towards the south-southwest, and this is really encompassing the entire area by 0Z, and then you get into parts of central Alabama, and you get that 40 knot flow here. And then up at the 500 millibar layer, we start to really get that flow that really begins to take shape here. This is by 18Z. We have 50 knots here, and that strengthens to over 60 knots of flow here across northern Mississippi by 0Z. And that continues to strengthen as we head into the overnight hours of Wednesday into Thursday morning at about 2 a.m. or I'm sorry, at 1 a.m. here, you're dealing with 60 knots of flow, increasing to 70 knots back over Mississippi. Now, by this time, the event should be winding down. So this is probably going to be an afternoon event, which means here between 12, 18, and 0, we actually have strengthening flow aloft. And if we take a look at the 200 millibar layer, way up there at just about 30,000 feet here, we notice that the flow here by 12Z already about 90 knots of flow, but it really begins to strengthen by 0 by 18 to just over 100 knots of flow across portions of northwest Mississippi, and by 0Z here, 100 knot flow encompassing most of Mississippi and northwestern Alabama. So this is going to be an event where it is going to be interesting to see if we can get any of that low-level response. We have a great upper-level response here in the upper levels of the environment, but it's going to be down to this low-level moisture response here. We notice, though, if we look at the 500 millibar relative humidity, though, one of the things is that, and again, this is at 18,000 feet, we're going to have a pretty warm, or not a pretty warm, a pretty moist column all the way aloft. And again, we don't really have this big elevated mix layer like you might see way out here. At 500 millibars, we have a very moist environment across this entire worm sector, and that's going to play a huge part in, again, some of that mixing potential that we could be looking for Wednesday into the overnight hours. So this is going to limit that severe weather potential, but I do think that there is enough of the upper level dynamics that you could squeeze out a few scattered severe storms. The potential for tornadoes does exist. We can take a look here at the bulk shear, and there's going to be some pretty sufficient bulk shear here going into the day on Wednesday, again, especially over northwestern Mississippi and northwestern Alabama. That seems to be that corridor that is most favored at the moment. And you can kind of see that's on the northern end of this risk area right in here. But again, most of that there is highlighted within that area. So we'll be looking for that potential severe weather event. Of course, I'll be covering it over the next several days. And with that being said, hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. And I will talk to you guys again some more later.